Hello, hello, hello to everybody here. My name is Teresa Sanderson. I am the preceptor for Nurse Entrepreneurs, and we are here for our weekly Nurse Entrepreneur Spotlight. And today we are featuring Nena Hart of Hart Healthcare Solutions. Nena does consulting for compliance and retention for senior care, private duty, hospice, and home health. And she transforms stagnant operations, struggling with staffing and systems, into thriving operations with high-performing teams. So, Nena, I want to thank you for sharing some time with us today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. I am too. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what your business is all about.
Okay. Well, I am a nurse. So I started as a nurse's aide in long-term care and kind of worked my way up through the system as I started having realizations about how broken it was. And so, I went home one day and told my husband, I'm going to be the DON of this place, which stands for Director of Nursing and Long-Term Care, because I wanted to fix problems. And so that's kind of been my career-long aspiration, is fixing broken facilities or operations or systems in healthcare. And so everywhere I went, I kind of went with this mindset that I could leave it better than I came. And that was, kind of always my mission.
Mm-hmm.
So I've wanted to work for myself for a while, for a couple of years, and just had a lot of fear and insecurity around that because I am the breadwinner. My husband stays at home. We have 4 kids. And that was just a better setup. I was traveling a lot as the administrator and then later the area vice president over a really large region in Tennessee of 27 locations. And so, so that was for hospice. And so I was traveling to my branches a lot, and it just worked out better for him to stay home. But I was afraid that I couldn't make that same income if I quit. And so I had it in my mind that I had to hold on to my job. So we got an opportunity for me to be the CEO of a hospice on Oahu, and he's Hawaiian Japanese and has some family here. So we've lived in Hawaii before, and that just made sense for us. Mm-hmm. So we took that opportunity. It was everything I've always wanted, and they fired me a few weeks after we got here. So about 4 weeks, right after New Year's, the day I came back to work from New Year's. I've never been fired in my life. I've never been written out in my life.
Yeah.
So
wow.
Work was always an area I could control my success. And so, that was a huge blow for me, just personally, my pride, emotionally, professionally. I thought it was the worst thing that had ever happened to me. Mm-hmm. But turns out it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it forced me to start my business. And it was really a blessing. It was given to me. And so I had applied for a quality job with another hospice on island. I was just applying for jobs to try and get some income coming in. Mm-hmm. And the medical director called me and he said, "Hey, I opened this hospice. I'm the administrator. I'm the medical director. And I filled the position you applied for. Sorry." And I'm like, "Wow, well, no, thank you for letting me know. At least he called me." And he said, "What would you think about doing some consulting?" And so I was like, "Wow, that would be great." He said, "I saw on your resume that you've done ACHC before, and we're thinking about transitioning from CHAP to ACHC."
Oh, wow.
I said, "Yeah, I rolled out ACHC with my team, obviously not myself, but with an awesome team of clinicians for 27 locations. It was the largest parent provider survey ever done in the nation at the time. So all those 27 locations were grandfathered from one, or grew from one provider, and then rolled into that CON when that process came out. So I said, "Yeah, I have done that, and that's something I enjoy doing." So over the last 7 months now, I've been working with his hospice, and they just had their ACHC initial for ACHC, but it's not there. Yes. But they had their survey. They got 3 deficiencies, and it was an awesome experience. I'm so proud of their team. And I just really enjoyed it. Yeah. So that's kind of how I got to where I am to date. So I am implementing that process, and have talked to several other hospices and home cares who want to become accredited and just really enjoy the compliance piece. It's really important to me. I think it translates hugely to culture and patient care more than people might realize.
Wow, I love hearing that. And I think it's a certain nurse, a certain nursing leader who really embraces regulation and compliance. And no, believe me, I'm the nerd next to you. So
It's not for everyone.
Yeah, but when you can make that, something that lives and breathes and is not just something to check off boxes, but instead, like you say, leads to better patient care, higher quality outcomes, all of those things, then it's an awesome thing to bring it to life. So congratulations.
Thank you. And you've been a huge part of my growth and personal and professional development over the last 6 months, for sure. I'm so grateful for you, Teresa. You've been a constant positive. So
oh, wow, that makes me feel so good. Thank you. Thank you so much for your kind words.
I mean that truly, it should.
Oh, I appreciate that. So tell me, I think it's pretty clear, is there anything other than your personal experience with regulation and compliance that really drew you to this area? Anything that just led you to this particular business?
Well, just exploring where my strengths were, and I'm a fixer. I just am. I'm a big picture thinker, and I'm a fixer. And I just, in the experience vein, I saw so many issues that could have been prevented that caused so many people fines, or even like possible licensure loss for the directors who didn't realize that they weren't in compliance and what they were doing was not compliant. So just seeing those things happen and how they could have been prevented is really kind of motivational to me to help people through the process of realizing where their issues are and how to fix them. And just the frustration of healthcare in general. Like, it doesn't have to be this frustrating. Like, they're like, well, I had to send back the visit 3 times, and then I had to go and I left her house, but it was 50 minutes away. And you have all these stories, and you're like, why didn't you just call the office? There's just no process in place. And that's what causes so much frustration and breakdown. And people don't realize how that impacts productivity when you have broken systems. It impacts turnover and retention, productivity, revenue, growth, and it touches everything. Compliance, it touches it all when your systems are broken. And so I think I just enjoy putting systems in place that fix those problems.
I love that. And, it's an old performance improvement thing that 80% of all problems are system oriented, and I think all too often it's just so easy to do a little finger pointing, a little blame laying, as so-and-so just done this. Well, if we had the process outlined for them to do that quickly and easily, right? I'm sure they would have done it.
And I think as leaders, it's very easy for myself as well to blame the employee and say, well, she never does what she's supposed to do, or she doesn't listen, or she just does, she won't, follow anyway. And it's like, no, that's really not what's happening. She's frustrated too. Like, if we sat down and talked through the system and found where the breakdown is, you might find out it's really not her trying to be difficult.
Right. Oh, I just love that. I think that's a huge piece of insight, because when we think about these kinds of issues, and like you say, it affects turnover, it affects revenue, it affects all these things. So when we're looking at, is there money in the budget to give nurses a raise? If we've sacrificed it somewhere else, or if we've had to spend so much money replacing nurses who quit, there's not anything left over, and so it just impacts everything. And so I think the insight there, that whenever we can create those systems, it's so beneficial for the organization, because it's almost like sending a bowling ball down the lane, right? That's the direction you're going. And it always goes there. So hopefully.
And I know, with growth and trying to grow and scale a hospice, you can't do that without staff. You can't do that without systems. you reach a point where you can't take admissions or you can't manage the patients you have, and you start having people transfer or revoke because you don't have staff, you don't have systems, you don't have the customer service. So it's all interconnected that way.
Exactly. Very, very true. Now, tell me, have you noticed any changes in your business from the pandemic? Has the pandemic impacted what you do?
Maybe somewhat, a lot of the mindset of survey and mock surveys is on site. And that's just a mindset that you have to be on site to do a mock survey. And while I think that's great for cultural assessment, maybe being something you can't always pick up on immediately remotely, I think it has helped a lot to realize that this can be done remotely. This is a remote service that I provide. I have the ability to travel, but they're paying that additional expense, and it's just not needed. And if I'm empowering the organization to do it for themselves, they're doing all the work. I'm providing the recommendations, the guidelines, the roadmap to compliance, the recommendations on how to improve the systems for compliance and processes that scale to operations. And I don't have to be on site to do that. So I think I have seen some positive movement in that direction where they're realizing like, we can do this, and so I don't have to physically be on site to sit there and point out everything. And almost everybody's on an EMR now. So all of the chart audits I've done thus far have been remote. And
Awesome.
we had it, my current hospice, I did go on site for a site ops a couple times, but other than that, everything's been remote. And I think the pandemic has kind of made people realize in some positive ways that there's some travel that isn't necessary.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. So it sounds like you've definitely, if anything, the impact has been very positive and just, really transitioning over to that remote role, which is awesome. I have to chuckle. I posted a picture today of my bedroom slippers because nurses are always asking what's the most comfortable work shoe, but when you work from home, it's really gonna be your slippers or your flip-flops. So there's a great benefit in that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So tell me this, when you've worked a full day in your business and you're tired, because we've all had those days, right? Whether we're working on the floor or as the director of nursing or whatever, and you can just feel kind of exhausted. You can be really tired. You put in a good day. What's that like for you now as compared to when you were doing that work for someone else?
My favorite meme of all time is I'm my own boss and that guy runs a real loose ship. So I compare that to what you're asking, because even after I sit in front of this laptop for 10 hours and do all the things that needed to be done for my business that day, reply to all the emails, get all the, pieces of a contract ready. Even when I shut it off, I just feel like there's so much more to do. It's never done. And maybe when I was working the floor, if I was a case manager for hospice, or even as AVPO, as the area vice president, I mostly couldn't shut it off because I knew there was a structure around it. If I wasn't on call, I could shut it off and walk away and know like that's gonna wait till tomorrow. And when you work for yourself and you're your own boss, or at least in my experience, it seems a lot harder to do that, because I'm telling you, I can work around the clock and feel like some days I don't make a dent.
Wow.
I mean, it's like there's so much things you want to do. You're in charge of yourself and how you spend your own time. And so I think in some ways that makes it harder, because there's no one telling you what you should be spending your time on, how long you should be working, what you should be working on, what's the priority. You have to decide all these things for yourself.
Right. Absolutely.
That's challenging for me.
Absolutely. And so thinking about, going a little further on that question and thinking about how you feel about, whether or not you can turn things off, what is your sense of accomplishment now in your own business as compared to when you worked for someone else? Is there any difference there?
Yeah, I think there is a difference because for me, working for myself, I feel like I have personally accomplished something. There is no I in team, but I am the team. So, before I had a different sense of accomplishment because I felt like as a team we were doing great things. I always felt very connected by the people who were supporting me, and now I get that from networking, from people like you, and from people in the different Facebook groups that I'm in, from LinkedIn, and from people that I'm meeting who are trying to start their own business or have their own business and want to help me. I get that sense of accomplishment that like we're working together to really improve healthcare as a whole. But I also feel like I've learned something new and I've done something to improve myself as well. So
awesome. Well, that's very good. That is very good. Well, I'm very excited about, the direction of your business and everything that you have going on. And what I'd like to do right now, Nena, is just give you the last few minutes of our time here to chat a little bit with our audience about a little bit more about your business and any offerings that you may have. Okay?
Okay, sure. Thank you, Teresa.
You're welcome.
I think the biggest thing right now that I have going on is a free compliance challenge. So for the next 8 weeks, starting November 1st, so 4 days, we're going to start a high-level overview of navigating compliance in home care, because it can be really challenging to know where to start. And it's very overwhelming, especially for a lot of freestanding agencies. Like, how do I even start this process? Even if you don't want to become accredited and you just want to have a good survey, even if you're not interested in accreditation, you will be surveyed. You can't prevent that from happening. So, we're going to go through in 8 weeks, one area each week of compliance and how to implement small things in that area that will help you over time become more compliant. So I'm doing that in my Leaders in Senior Care Facebook group, but they can also sign up for that via email if they prefer. So.
Okay. Well, that sounds like an amazing challenge. I think a lot of people are definitely going to benefit from that. And I have the links for that. So I will be definitely posting those below this video so that everybody who's interested can opt into that. But thank you again, Nena, for joining us today on our very first Nurse Entrepreneur Spotlight. I want to thank you for your time, wish you abundant success in your business. And to all of our viewers out there, I want to say thank you very much for being here, and we will see you again next week.
I've enjoyed it. Aloha.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.